Section 7.4, Part 1, Adding and Subtracting Rational Expressions. So in the last video, we were multiplying and dividing, which is actually quite a bit easier than adding and subtracting when we called it irrational expressions. The main reason is because of the denominators. When you're adding or subtracting things with like denominators, meaning the denominators are the same. For example, a over c plus b over c. If you notice, their denominators are both exactly the same, c. So when adding these fractions, you just add the numerators. This would be a plus b all over c. Okay. The simplest of this, back into the old days, 2/5 plus 1/5. Okay. So they both have a denominator of fifth, so we would just take 2 plus the 1 and put it over the 5, and 2 plus 1 is 3, so we get 3/5. And then at the end, we always look to simplify if we can. There is nothing that divides into both 3 and 5 besides 1, so it is in simplest form. Okay. So if they have the same denominator, it's pretty straightforward. Okay. For example, here example 1. They both have a denominator of 21 times x, so I can just add them. I would go 5 plus 2, put them all over the 21x. Well, 5 plus 2 is 7, over 21, again that's 21 times x. Well, I can simplify these both by dividing by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, 21x divided by 7 is 3x, so we get 1 over 3x. Okay, in simplest form. Again, you always need to simplify, and that's our word of caution, simplify. Many people get the addition right but forget to simplify at the end. Okay. All right, now for part B, again here denominators are the same, x minus 5, x minus 5. So now I'll just subtract 4x, subtract the 3, subtract the numerators all over the denominator of x minus 5. And again, always look to simplify. Simplifying may involve having to factor to see if they have a common factor. This numerator here, 4x minus 3, has no common factors, the 4x and the 3. So there we're just like that. Okay, word of caution. Very common error. Here's a very common error. A common error many people will make is they will, at this point, this 4x minus 3 over x minus 5, they'll simplify. They'll be like, oh, x divided by x, those cancel out. So we have 4 minus 3 over negative 5. 4 minus 3 is 1, so we have 1 over negative 5. There, I'm done. Okay, this does not work. You cannot simplify between these x's because they're within a subtraction. Okay, that's as silly as saying, okay, 5/8. Well, I could rewrite 5 as 4 plus 1. I could rewrite 8 as 4 plus 4. Well, I can divide this 4 and this 4, and I'm left with 1/4. 5/8 is the same as 1/4. No, it's not. That makes absolutely no sense. You cannot simplify between addition. You can only do it between multiplication. So you have to be, it has to be a factor, it has to be a multiply to be able to simplify that way. Okay, so just a word of caution, if you're adding something to that value, you cannot divide that out there. Okay, because that's just how adding fractions work. It doesn't work that way. Okay. All right, adding or subtracting with unlike denominators. Okay, so if I'm adding two fractions with unlike denominators, a over c plus b over d, you have to get a common denominator. Have to get a common denominator. The easiest common denominator is to just multiply the c and the d. So I would multiply this times d and times d, so I'd have a over d, cd, and then multiply this times c, so we'd have bc over cd. So now they have a common denominator, so now I can add them, ad plus bc over cd. So the easiest common denominator is to just multiply the two denominators. That's not always the simplest, okay? So a lot of times if you do that, sometimes that involves a lot of simplification at the end. So if you can find the least common multiple, it will save you a lot of simplification at the end. So to find the least common multiple, remember from Algebra 1, first thing first, we need to factor. So first things first, we need to factor both of these. Well, let's see, out of this, I can factor a 6 out with x squared minus 9, because 6 times 9 is 54. Out of here, I can factor a 9 out, x squared minus 6x plus 9. Hey, well now let's factor, this is difference of squares. Now let's see, will this factor x and x, multiplies to give 9, add to get negative 6, minus 3, okay. And then sometimes it's helpful to even break down the number parts. 6 is 2 times 3, times x plus 3, times x minus 3. 9 is 3 times 3, x minus 3, and I'm going to leave it all factored out. So now to find the least common multiple, first let's find the stuff they have in common. Okay, so first they both have an x minus 3. There's one here, so I'll have 1x minus 3. Hey, what else do they have in common? They both have a 3. So we can have a 3. So that's all the stuff they have in common. So the stuff they have in common we only list once. Okay. And now we go in and find the stuff they don't have in common, and I'm going to need those as well. So I'm going to need a 2 to take care of that 2 there, so I'll have a 2 times there. I'm going to need an x plus 3 to take care of that, and I'm going to need another x minus 3 to take care of that. So first you list the stuff they have in common, their common factors, and only list those once, because this 3 will work for both of these. This x minus 3 will work for both of these. But then I need an x plus 3 for this guy, the 2. So by these common multiple, if we multiply this all out, it would be 2 times 3, which is, oh wait, we forgot one. I forgot this 3. Forgot that 3 there. Okay. 3 times 2 times 3, 9 times 2, 18. 3 times 2 times 3, 3 times 2 is 9 times 3, 18. Okay. And then an x minus 3, but I've got 2 of them. And an x plus 3. So for my least common, this is what I should use for a common denominator between these two. Hey, you could just multiply these two, but then it would be too big. You'd have 6 times 9, which is 54. I don't need to go that far. 18 is small enough because I can multiply 6 times 3 to get 18 and 9 times 2 to get 18. Okay. So again, you could just multiply the 2, but that'll normally end up getting you something way too big. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at one where we need to find here a common denominator. So first things first is I'm going to factor out my denominator. So here my numerator is still 8. But I'm going to factor out the 12. So I'm going to I'm going to break down the 12. I could break it down into 3 times 4. X to the second is x times x. Okay. Plus now this one, again, my numerator is x. Now down here, I've got a plus. So what can I factor out of these two things? I'm an x, and I'm left with x plus 1. Don't forget the plus 1. Without the plus 1, these two are not the same. So now I always ask myself, before I'm like, yep, I'm done factoring, if I multiply this out, will I get back to here? 3 times 4 times x, yep. If I distribute this in, I'll get x squared plus x, yep, gets me back up to here. So now we need to decide what our denominator is going to be. Well, so we've got a 3 times a 4 times an x times an x times an x times an x plus 1. This is all one thing. Okay, so again, we look to see things they have in common. Well, they both have an x. So I'm going to need an x in my denominator. That's the only thing they have in common. So now I'm going to need everything else. I'm going to need a 3 and a 4, and this x, and an x plus 1. So there is my new denominator. 3 times 4 times x times x times x plus 1. Okay, so now, so there's my new denominator. So plus, and then let's do this on the other side as well. Let's write it that way. 3 times 4 times x plus 1. So there, so now I'm going to rewrite this fraction using this denominator. So now you look to see what's missing, meaning what do I need to multiply this by to get to here? Well, I've got the 3 already. I've got the 4 already. I've got the 2 x's. The only thing extra is this x plus 1. So I need to multiply numerator and denominator by x plus 1. So I'll have the 8 up here times parenthesis, that whole thing, x plus 1. So I'm just looking to see what's missing. What did I multiply this by to get to down here? We've got the 3, the 4, the 2 x's. We're just missing the x plus 1. And then I do the same thing to this fraction. Well, I don't have a 3. I don't have the 4. I have one of the x's and x plus 1. So really, this stuff's the same, but I'm missing a 3, a 4, and an x. So I take the x that's already there, times 3, times the 4, times the x. So we're multiplying by 3 times 4 times x. Okay, so now we just distribute, multiply out. So this would give me 8, because now we have the same denominator. So now we just multiply and add our numerators. So let's distribute this in. We'll have 8x plus 8. Okay, plus, this is all a multiply, so 3 times 4 times 2 x's, that was giving me 12x to the second. All divided by, now my denominator, if I multiply this out, I have 3 times 4, which is 12, x to the second, x plus 1. If I distribute that back. Okay, so now let's see if I can simplify this guy. So I can rearrange this so my x squared's in front. I can factor a 4 out of my numerator. So, because 4 comes out of all of those, so I'm left with 3x squared plus 2x plus 2 over 12x squared, x plus 1. Now I can divide both top and bottom by 4. So these 4's divide out, and those 4 are left with 3. So now let's see, I think that numerator will factor 3x, 2 and 1. I'm thinking 2 here, 1 here. Plus and plus, does that work? 3x squared, 3x plus, nope, that won't work. Plus or minus, that might not factor because it's all positive, and 3 times, if we use organize, 3 times 2 is 6. Looking for what adds to give me, multiplies to give me 6. We got 1 and 6, 2 and 3, but also adds to give me 2. That's 7, that's 5. Nope, that won't factor. Okay, so that's as far as it'll go. So we'll have 3x squared plus 2x plus 2 all over 12 divided by 4 is 3x squared, x plus 1. It's as far as it goes. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see that. Okay, word of caution again, I cannot simplify between this x squared and this x squared because this is 3x squared plus 2x. This 3x squared is not a factor. This one is, but this one is not, so those don't simplify. So this is as far as that guy will simplify. Okay. All right, now we have one more. Now this is a subtract. With subtract, you do it the same way, but you just have to be really careful because we're subtracting not just the first term, but the whole thing. So again, we're going to factor our denominator, so we'll leave the top the same. Now this will factor, I believe, into x minus 2x minus 1, x squared minus 1x minus 2x plus 2. Yep, minus. And then we've got negative 2x minus 1. And over here I can factor out to 2. And I'm left with x minus 2. Okay. So now to figure out our common denominators, again subtracting, I just write my 2 fraction lines. Now let's see, what do they have in common? Well, they both have an x minus 2. So we're going to need an x minus 2 in the denominators. Now what they don't have in common is an x minus 1, so we'll need one of those. And then we'll need the 2. We always put that number in front. Okay, and so now we look to see what's missing. From this denominator to this denominator, we've got x minus 2. X minus 1 is just the 2. So I need to multiply this entire numerator by 2. So we'll have 5x minus 1 times 2. Now what's missing here? 2, the x minus 1. So I'll need to take this entire numerator and multiply it by x minus 1. Okay, so now we distribute. So this gives me 10x minus 2. And then I'm subtracting. I need to distribute this, but I need to make sure I'm subtracting the whole thing. So I'm going to put it in parentheses. So we have negative 2x squared plus 2x minus x plus 1 all over, now the denominator, 2x minus 2, x minus 1. Okay, so I'm subtracting this whole thing. Okay, so we'll have 10x minus 2 minus a negative, that gives me plus 2x squared. All right, I can put these two together. They're like terms. 2x minus 1 is 1, but then I'm subtracting it. So minus 1x minus 1 all over denominator 2. X minus 2, x minus 1. Okay, let's come bring it over here. All right, so let's put together like terms. I've got a 2x squared, no other x squared, so we'll go 2x squared. Now x's, I've got 10x minus x, which gives me plus 9x. Negative 2 minus 1 is minus 3 all over 2. Okay, and so then now we attempt to simplify this thing. Okay, to see if, will this up here factor into something that will cancel down here. I'm just going to play around with some factoring. 2x and x, our really options are only 3 and 1, so minus 3 plus 1. Does that give me 9 in the middle? 2x squared minus 3. No. What if the 3 and the 1 were switched? 2x squared plus 6 minus 1. Nope. So won't factor. Nothing will factor out of it. That's as far as it will go. So we're done. Again, always double check to make sure if that thing will factor. Okay. So now you know how to, you know how to multiply and divide fractions, and now you know how to add and subtract fractions. So you are ready for the 7-3-7-4 skill check. The back part of these notes will be on the next skill check. So save these notes to add on to the next part of it.